This seems like it's going to be a very interesting offseason, a very active offseason for the Detroit Pistons, one that might see Jaden Ivey get moved. But if Jaden Ivey does remain on the team, what does he most need to improve upon to impact this team as soon as next year? We'll talk about that in today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I'm your host, Koo Cahill. You can find me over on Twitter at Koo Cahill. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. And if you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started today. A little later in the podcast, we'll talk about some low-key free agents that I think the Pistons should be interested in. I think would help this team win a lot more games next year. And when I say a lot more games, not like 50 plus or anything, but a lot more than 14, obviously 13, 14 games. And they shouldn't be as expensive. I think they'd be some good pickups. So we'll talk about them. Also, Monty Williams to the Los Angeles Lakers. We'll talk about that a little later as well. But I want to start off with Jaden Ivey. But before we get into that conversation about Jaden Ivey, I want to ask you guys just a random question. I want to hear from you guys. I need some help. What times do you guys work out? For those of you guys who go to the gym, like, do you guys work out before work in the morning, right after work, or do you guys work out at night? I've tried all of them except working out at night. I'm starting to think that I might be a night workout person, but I've never done it before. So how is that? Is that for those of you guys out there? Have anyone ever tried that out? Is that like a good schedule for you guys? Let me know. I'm trying to get back into the gym consistently. But anyways, let's talk about Jaden Ivey now. So I think it's not a secret. I said this on the podcast with Bryson Omari. I am no longer as high on Jaden Ivey as the rest of the Pistons fan base. I think Ivey doesn't have as much support as he did last offseason. I said on a previous episode, I thought he was the most disappointing Piston this year with how the season went for him. However, with that said, it is not a for sure thing that Jaden Ivey is moved. And like I've said many times before, that I won't be surprised in 3 to 4 years if Jaden Ivey's a really good player. That would not shock me. However, the question that the Pistons are presenting themselves, this is not what Koo Cahill thinks. This is not Koo Cahill's opinion. This is the reality of the situation. If the Pistons do move on from Ivey, it will be because they don't believe he can impact this team in a good enough way or in a winning fashion next year. And his value would be better used in a trade. However, I want to ask the question, what does he need to improve on the most to where he would be impactful in helping them win games as soon as next year? To where they don't feel like, okay, well, we think to help us win next year, trading him would impact us more than keeping him. What does he need to improve on to get to that point where he can impact this team and help them win next year and get himself back into the I don't want to say untouchables, but like towards the top of the chart when it comes to Piston priorities? And it's a very easy answer for me. A very easy answer. Some people are going to say it's outside shot. Unfortunately, I just don't have much faith in that jump shot, in that outside jump shot, ever getting to a point where it's like a 38% three-point shot. Like, I don't think that's ever going to be the case. I don't think he's ever going to be an above average high volume outside jump shooter. So that's not what I'm going with. Some people may say defense. I don't think defense is something that's ever going to be in his game either. So I'm not going to say defense. I'm not going to say things I just can't see happening. However, there is one thing he can do that could make himself impactful on this team as soon as next year. And that is, how do I want to put it? He, as of right now, at 21 years old, after his second season in the NBA, he has one very clear NBA trait, very clear one, an elite one, and that is his ability to put pressure on the rim. He is going to put pressure on the rim because of his athleticism, because of his speed, because of his quickness, because of his explosiveness. he can put pressure on the rim consistently. The problem is that, and this is why I've brought up on the podcast with Bryson Omari when they were on last week, is that yes, he puts pressure on the rim, but nothing comes of that pressure he puts on the rim because he doesn't either make the right play out of it, or he's not finishing at a high enough level to where it's worth it. If you can get to the rim, cool, but you have to make something happen out of that pressure on the rim. If you're getting to the rim and you're not finishing at a high level, what's the point of getting to the rim? If you're getting to the rim and you're turning the ball over too much, what's the point of getting to the rim? If you're getting to the rim and you're not making the right play enough, what's the point of getting to the rim? So if he can turn that his elite trait of getting to the rim, if he can find a way to turn that into a positive ending, into a positive, like I said, ending to an offensive possession consistently, that will make him an impactful player for the team. Maybe not as highly as an impactful player, but then you could talk me into him being a guy off the bench. If Ivey can be a guy that can consistently get to the rim and make good plays happen out of getting pressure on the rim, then you can talk me into them going that route that people are talking about, where it's like, okay, you get a veteran to start over him and you let him come off the bench. Then I could see it. Just to back up what I'm saying here, I'm not going with the spot-up shooting. We've talked about that. I've brought these stats up before. When it comes to finishing around the rim, his rookie year, he was one of the worst finishers in the entire NBA. This year, he was the 23rd percentile finishing at the rim. Again, just below average, not a very good finisher at all. And I bring this up all the time. For Kay Cunningham, people talk about his turnovers all the time. Jaden Ivey was less usage and less weight on his shoulders. My goodness, in the half-court offense, he had a higher turnover percentage than Kay Cunningham. His first 2 years in the league, he's turned the ball over 3.2 times his rookie year, but he had the ball a lot more in his hands, so that's understandable. But then this year, despite having the ball a lot less, he had 2.5 turnovers per game. So and for those who are objective on Ivey, know that he can be out of sorts. He can be reckless with the ball in his hands. He doesn't make the right read a lot of times. So if he can make those plays, that's where he needs to be working on. If he improved his three-point shot to an otherworldly, percentage, yeah, that would be great. If he became a great defender, yes, that would be great. But I don't think those are realistic options for him right now. What I think is realistically possible for him to develop, that he needs to develop, with the kind of player he is, with what his elite traits are, he can put pressure on the rim with the best of them. You are not going to be able to stop him from getting to the rim. It's just without fouling. And also, I should have brought this up. He also doesn't hit free throws at a high percentage. He shoots 74% on them. If you can get that up to like 87%, that would be great, because he's turning those, again, pressure at the rim. Now you're turning those pressures at the rim, those free throws, into more consistent points for your team. You're turning finishes at the rim. If he's going from a 23rd percentile finisher on them, he can get up to around 50th percentile. Now you're getting somewhere. If you can lower the turnover percentage, you can make the right read a lot more times. You can create for your teammates a lot more. You make the right pass. You don't throw passes so much into the third row of the stands. You're not throwing heaters at guys' faces and they can't catch the ball. You're not throwing no-look passes when you don't have to, and therefore throwing inaccurate passes all the time. Like, if those are things he can improve on, I believe, as soon as this offseason. And if he's able to do that, he can impact this team winning next year. He can do that. Whether it's starting next to Cade, I don't think he can do that without, again, I think Cade needs someone starting next to him who can shoot threes and defend. But even if it's coming off the bench, playing 25-plus minutes off the bench, if he's able to turn his rim pressure into actual positives, that will unlock so many things for him. It will make him an impact player for the Pistons as soon as next year, where they can convince themselves that, hey, he can help us win games next year. Because that's the question, whether Pistons fans want to hear it or not. This is not my opinion. The question that's going to be asked by this Pistons team when they make a decision on Ivey and or Durant or anyone else on the team is going to be, can this player help us win more games next year? Or will they be better used would their value be better used in a trade to help us win next year? That's the question that's being asked. And for Ivey, I think it's simple as this. Turn your pressures at the rim into positives. Get better at finishing around the rim, improve your free throw percentage, create more plays for your teammates, not be as reckless with the ball in your hands, and make the right reads. You can do that. You're Gucci. You're fine. You'll be good. You'll get into everyone's good graces, and at the same time, you'll be given more time to develop the other aspects, such as shooting. You'll be given more time to develop your defense. You'll be given more time to develop all those other parts of your game if the team can bank on one NBA skill impacting them winning. If the Pistons can bank on one skill impacting them to win, you'll get that time to develop in Detroit. It's just a matter of, do they have the confidence in doing so, and can Ivey get better at that this offseason? I think he can. It's just a matter of, will he turn those pressure at the rim to finishing higher rate, play make better, make the right decisions, higher free throw percentage, not as reckless with the ball in your hands. Those are things I think he has within his control. We'll see if he does it. And the craziest thing about this is that I thought that at the beginning of last year, he was not good at this at all. But at the beginning, or I guess I should say 2 years ago. But as the season went on, I thought he got better. And a lot of people came into the second season of his expecting a lot of things because he got better throughout his rookie year. And then this year, it just seemed like he took a step back in every facet. It was, not step back, because he did finish around the rim, 13 percentile higher. So I don't want to say step back, but nowhere near what people expected. And in some areas, I do think he took a step back. Like decision making, I thought he wasn't as good at the end of the year. But again, those are things that he can improve on next year. I'm not as much concerned about the three-point shot because I'm not much of a believer. I believe in his speed, in his explosiveness, in his ability to get to the rim, in his ability to draw free throws. He can do those things. Just actually end these possessions with positives, and you can impact the team. I think he can do that. I do. So I hope he's working on that. I hope that's what he's working on this offseason. And again, like I said, I'm not saying that if he improved his three-point shot, it wouldn't be good. Obviously, that would be great. I'm operating what I believe is realistic at this point in the offseason of 2024. I believe this is the most realistic pathway because of his elite skill set of being able to put pressure on the rim. He puts pressure on the rim with the best of them. He does. Just because of how crazy athlete he is. He can get to the rim anytime. Just a matter of, can he end it off with a positive to where it actually matters? So let me know in the comment section down below how you guys feel about that. Do you guys agree, disagree with me? Again, let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter @KukaHill. When we come back, some low-key free agents that I think the Detroit Pistons should be looking into. We'll talk about them when we come back. This Mother's Day, get something thoughtful for mom on DoorDash. Surprise her from wherever you are with fresh bouquets, the latest tech, gift cards, self-care treats, and more to make her day that much better. 50% off your next order, up to $15 when you spend $15 or more on your next flower. Convenience, grocery, or retail order now on DoorDash. Pair of flowers with a gift card so you can celebrate any way that she wants. Is she a bookworm? Try a bookstore gift card. Does she love a good latte? Get a gift card to her favorite coffee shop. You can't go wrong. Last year, I did this for my mom. I got her flowers, and I got her a gift card to Starbucks. She absolutely loves Starbucks. And I did that with DoorDash. It had her arrive at her house while I was at work. I got the text. I got the FaceTime call. She was extremely happy. She was extremely excited. I did the same thing for Valentine's Day with my wife. While she was at work, I sent her some flowers, some chocolates. She loved it and also gave me some brownie points with the rest of her office, all using DoorDash. DoorDash, I've been using it for years. Incredibly useful. I love using DoorDash, and so will you. Get a Mother's Day gift as unique as she is with DoorDash. Use code LOCKEDONNBA. Get 50% off your next order, up to $15 when you spend $15 or more on your next flower, convenience, grocery, or retail order now on DoorDash. That's promo code LOCKEDONNBA. Order using DoorDash today. Terms apply with DoorDash. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the right tool to find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. It gives you access to professionals you can't find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all that while making process easy and intuitive. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. All right, so obviously this offseason, the Detroit Pistons are going to have a lot of cap space. And this offseason, at some point, maybe in the next week or two, I'm going to try to get our friend of the show, Keith Smith, NBA cap expert at Spotrac. We had him on 2 years ago. I believe we had him on also last year. I'm going to try to get him back on this year to talk about not just the Pistons cap situation. I want him to explain for everybody the repercussions of the second apron, so you know how that is going to help the Pistons and how that can affect the Detroit Pistons. I want to get him on here. It's going to be a fun episode, so I'm going to reach out. He's always been super nice, so stay tuned for that. But anyways, the Pistons are going to have a lot of cap space, and it's been talked about. Are they going to use it in free agency? Are they going to use it in the trade market? Are they going to use it in both? I think it's probably likely that they'll use it in both. But also the talk has been who exactly is the target? Who are the targets the Pistons will be looking at? And the main one that's been coming up, obviously, is Tobias Harris. Now, I like Tobias. I think he's a really good player. I don't think he's a superstar. I don't think he is the answer for the Pistons becoming a championship contender. But Tobias Harris is a really good player. I know he didn't have a good playoff series, but like I've said many times, the Pistons are not going to be in the playoffs anytime soon. If you sign Tobias Harris to a 2-year contract, you're not going to have to worry about playoff performances because you won't be in the playoffs the next 2 years. It's just not going to happen. Also, I know people like to talk about Tobias Harris' playoff run this past year. Again, if you look at every other playoff run he had in Philly, this is his last 3 playoff runs. First year in 2020, 22 points a game, 8 rebounds a game, 3.5 assists, 48, 37, 87 splits. Next year, 17 points a game, 50, 38, 87 splits again. Last year, or I guess 2 years ago, I guess you'd call it, 15, 7.5 on 52, 37, 87 splits. Like, if that's like a player you just don't want in your team, I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense. And then this past year during the regular season, 17 points a game, 6.5 rebounds, 48, 35, 88 splits. He's been consistent for the last 5 years. This is who he is. He's going to score the basketball. You can spot up, whatever. But this isn't about Tobias. I know that Tobias in the Pistons community is a lightning topic. It's a lightning rod of a topic because people either just flat out don't want him. Some people really want him. And some people are just meh. And he's been the one that's talked about a lot. And I do believe that he's probably going to be the Pistons signing. I think it's almost 99% sure, I feel like, that he's going to be a Detroit Piston this offseason. But outside of Tobias, what are some other guys in free agency that the Detroit Pistons should be looking into that maybe won't cost as much as Tobias? Though I think his playoff performance might allow the Pistons to get Tobias Harris for a cheaper contract, which would be great. What are some other players that aren't talked about as much that the Detroit Pistons could go after? Now, D'Angelo Russell, again, we've brought him up. If he declines his player option, which it sounds like he is, he would be interesting. 28 years old. We've talked about him. But he's not the one I want to dive into on today's episode. The guy that I've identified is who I think would be a really low-key pickup, and I think would be a really good pickup by the team, is Gary Trent Jr. of the Toronto Raptors. He is an unrestricted free agent. He's coming off a year where he just got paid $17.2 million. He's 25 years old, not old at all. And I think he fits what the Pistons want, at least in the short term. Again, I'm going to make this clear before we even keep going. I want to make my stance on this clear so everyone understands completely. The Pistons' moves that they make this offseason does not need to be their final moves, nor should it be. There is multiple versions of teams that get built. Someone tweeted this out today, and I retweeted it. It's an interesting thought experiment. We might dive into it in a future episode. It's by NBA University. He tweeted out, is adding players that fit the timeline overrated? Doesn't matter if all your core players are in the same age. Nobody keeps the same core together for 10 plus years anyways. And the point is, I agree with it. It's the point I've been saying on the podcast. Whatever moves the Pistons make this offseason they don't need to mean that's it. That's their team for the next 10 years. You should be able to recreate your team in 2 years if you have to. So I'm not saying that Gary Trent is the final piece of them being a championship contender. I know that's where everyone wants to go, even though the Pistons just won 14 games. All they care about is championship contention all of a sudden, and apparently that makes sense. But anyways, I think Gary Trent would make sense in the short term. And maybe even in the long term. But at the very least in the short term. This is a guy who over the last 4 years of his career, he's 25 years old again. Over the last 4 years of his career, he is shooting 38.3% from beyond the arc on high volume, 7.1 attempts. Last year, 6.4 attempts, 40% from almost 40% from the field. Year before, 6.8 attempts, 37%. Year before that one, 7.8 attempts, 38%. Year before that, which is his third year, 38% again on 7.5 attempts. This guy is a marksman on high volume. He requires defenses to care. He requires defenses' attention when off ball. This past season, he had 321 possessions as a spot-up shooter. He ranked in the 79th percentile on these shots. Very good rating by Synergy. In transition, he ranked in the 82nd percentile in transition. Very good. What do you think a lot of those are coming on? You think those transition shots are coming on him or driving to the basket? Some of them are. He shot 59% on twos in transition. But you want to know what it's really about is the fact that he shot 46% on threes in transition. He makes teams pay in transition, and especially in a team that played pretty fast this past year and want to play pretty fast, I'm assuming, or at least play at a higher tempo. If you have guys that can cash in transition, guys like Simone Fontecchio, a guy like Gary Trent Jr., who shot, again, 46% on threes in transition, that fits perfectly. He's not a guy you're going to put the ball in his hands and ask him to go isolate. He's not an isolation player, nor do you need that kind of player next to Cade. He's not that type of player. You need a guy who commands off-ball gravity. Simone Fontecchio brought some. Gary Trent Jr. would bring that too. Gary Trent Jr. on all jump shots, he was in the 64th percentile. On all catch and shoots, jump shots, he was one of the very best in the entire NBA in the 88th percentile. Excellent. On unguarded shots, on unguarded catch and shoot shots, the 93rd percentile. He is one of the best shooters in the entire NBA. This is a player that defenses will not be able to play hard at the nail. That's something that the Pistons have dealt with. Cade Cunningham has had to deal with throughout his entire career. And it's something he talked about throughout the year. The spacing is so bad that teams don't respect the Pistons' other players, that they play aggressively at the nail. If you want to know what the nail is, the best way I can explain, you know what? You guys see this? Handy dandy notebook. I'm stealing. Yes, I am. I don't want to hear from you guys. I don't care. I am stealing from JJ Redick and LeBron James podcast. I'm going to draw this. This is going to be a basketball court right here. I'm going to have corner, wing. Let's say pick and roll guy here. This is Cade. All right, so this is the offense. Okay, you can look at it on the screen. For those of you guys listening to the podcast, I'll play it for you. I'll explain for you guys here. So this one right here, this is Cade on the wing. When he comes around this pick and roll, the nail defense is this defender that's guarding the opposite wing right here, X. Now, if it's a good shooter right there, like let's say a Gary Trent Jr., this guy has to stay farther out, because if he sinks in at the nail, which is what they call this is a nail right here when someone drives. If Cade drives right here and he helps down and Gary Trent Jr. is right here, that's a guy who shot, again, what is it? He was in the 93rd percentile on unguarded catch and shoot threes. This is a guy who shot 51% on threes, open catch and shoot threes. 51%. This defender is not going to be able to play hard at the nail. And if they do, the Pistons will be able to consistently make them pay with a player like Gary Trent Jr. The problem is for the Detroit Pistons, this guy consistently played in this area. Consistently played hard at the nail, aggressively all the way over to the, damn near all the way over to the other side of the free throw line when Cade drove, and it gave no driving lanes. Instead, he's kicking out to Jaden Ivey, who is not a good shooter, who's kicking it out to Killian Hayes at the beginning of the year, who's not a good shooter. That's one of the Pistons' biggest problems. They need guys who defenses respect at the off ball, and that will make them pay for playing that aggressive at the nail to where they stop playing that aggressive at the nail. I'm gonna start doing this. Hey, JJ and LeBron, I stole this. I don't think you guys have like copyright on it. What's the word? What's the word when someone like puts something on you start getting paid for anytime it gets mentioned or whatever? Why am I drawing a blank on that? But anyways, I stole you guys' idea, and yes, my handy dandy notebook. Anyways, yes, that's why I think Gary Trent Jr. would be a great fit. He's a fantastic shooter. Guys would not be able to play off of him, and if they did, this is a guy who will make them pay at an extremely high rate. I really like Gary Trent Jr. Also, he's 6'5". Not very. I wouldn't call him small at all at 6'5". Basketball Reference has him at 209 pounds, 210 pounds. So he got a little bit of strength on him, 6'5". So I like Gary Trent Jr. I think he's a low-key pickup. I think he would be cheaper than a lot of these other guys. I'm interested to know if is he leaving Toronto? Does Toronto even want him back? But I think Gary Trent Jr. would be a really good fit next to Cade. That's someone I would be interested in. So let me know what you guys think. Comment section down below or over on Twitter at Kukail. Would Gary Trent Jr. be a good pickup for the Detroit Pistons? Should they be interested in him? Again, Twitter at Kukail or down below in the comment section. When we come back, is Monty Williams heading to the Lakers? Leaving the Pistons out for the Lakers? We'll talk about that. And I'll break all of it down when we come back. All right, game off. We got to pause it right here to talk more about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You already talked about that. But there is just so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get. Unique stickers you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes. Cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with. Hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their unique mini games like digging for treasure or robot pachinko machines. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go, so get off the bench and go download it now, free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on today with Monopoly Go. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. Free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. So we kind of talked about this in the last episode already, but it got brought up again on ESPN. I was at work today. When I'm at work, I turn on whatever sports podcast, sports show that's on to help me get through the day. Because when I'm at that job, I feel like I'm being tortured. I need something to get me through the day. So I was listening to First Take, and Brian Windhorst was on there. And they were talking about the Lakers' job. And they were talking about whether it's a intriguing destination. Do coaches even want that job? Whatever. That was the conversation. So Stephen A. and Shannon Sharp asked Brian Windhorst, who are some coaches that could even want this job, that would be available for this job? Who should they be keeping their eye on? And again, for the second straight day in a row, Brian Windhorst brought up Monty Williams. Said, watch what happens in Detroit. Watch what happens with Monty Williams. He could be someone that Lakers go and get. I can tell you guys that Brian Windhorst mentioning that back-to-back days is not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence that is coming up. The Lakers obviously seem to have some kind of interest in Monty Williams. Now, obviously, that would require the new president of basketball operations that comes in for the Detroit Pistons firing Monty Williams. But what I want to talk about here, because I saw a lot of Pistons fans when I tweeted this out, I was like, I let everyone know that, hey, I just heard Brian Windhorst mention Monty Williams again, blah, blah. I think there has to be smoke to this, obviously, whatever. And there was a lot of Pistons fans that tweeted me and it was like, could this be a trade? Have they technically fired Darvin Ham yet? On that front, I'm not sure. Like, I know they've decided to move on from him, but I know like how it is in like restricted free agency when like a guy agrees to a contract, or even at the trade deadline. You know how guys like teams will agree to a trade and then like a few hours later they won't submit it because they'll like make it into a bigger trade. So I don't know if I know they've decided to fire Darvin Ham, but have they actually put the paperwork in where they couldn't make transactions off of it? I'm not sure. So that's why I wanted to say with that. The second thing is obviously addressing the trade stuff. You're not that trading the head coach is not happening. I know we've seen it happen. It's not happening in this situation. Monty Williams is getting paid one of the most in NBA history. At the time of his contract, when they signed it, it was the most or the highest paid contract in NBA history to an NBA head coach. The Lakers are not taking that on. Like, the Lakers are absolutely not taking that on. And Brian Windhorst brought up the fact that Lakers usually don't pay a lot for head coaches. They don't want to pay too much for head coaches. So a trade is definitely not happening at all. So if, let's say, the president of basketball operations comes in and wants to move on from Monty Williams, which I think is incredibly likely. If that's what happens, something Brian Windhorst brought up, something I've thought about, something I've heard as well, is that what if, if Monty Williams is getting paid that much, he agrees to move, and then the Lakers, maybe there's something that gets worked out where the Pistons and Pistons pay half of his contract, or the Pistons pay like 75, 80% of the contract when he leaves, and then the Lakers take on the other 20%. Or, like they break that up to where the Lakers don't have to pay that big of a contract. The Pistons don't have to pay the whole thing. The Lakers take on a share of it, and then it works out for both parties. Also, if the president of basketball, let's say that doesn't happen. I don't know the technicalities of how that would have to happen. But let's say that's not what ends up happening. Well, another thing that could make him intriguing for the Lakers job is that if the Pistons do want to move on from him, then obviously the Pistons are paying his contract. He'd get signed by the Lakers, or hired by the Lakers, I should say, and they don't have to pay him as much because he's getting paid all this money by the Pistons for the next few years. So why does he need to get paid that much by the Lakers? So I think that the Lakers' interest is legit. I think there's interest from the Lakers to get Monty Williams. I think they're paying attention to it. And I do think the sooner the Pistons make a decision on the president of basketball operations, I believe it's incredibly likely they clean house. That's what I believe. I think it's more likely that the new president of basketball operations, let's say hire somebody with connections to Monty, I think it's likely they want to get their own guy in. And with LA having interest in Monty Williams, I can see that happening. So I wanted to rule out the whole trade thing because I saw a lot of Piston people talking about that. It's not going to happen. There's no way any team wants that contract. It's just not going to happen. However, the fact that the Pistons may fire him may make him, like I said, at the top of the Lakers list of coaches to hire because his contract will be being paid by the Pistons. And maybe the Pistons and the Lakers, if the Lakers really want Monty since the free agency for coaches doesn't have a ton of proven coaches, I guess, like Monty, I suppose, like Brian Windhorst laid it out, maybe the Lakers agree to pay like a portion of the contract just to get him to come on. Maybe that could happen. So that's a situation I'm paying attention to. I think that's incredibly interesting. We'll see what happens, though. So that's all I've got for you guys today, though. Let me know what you guys think about that. Comment section down below or over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. Again, that's all I've got for you guys today. Let me know what you guys think. Comment section down below or over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. Thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen every single day. Free and available on our podcast platforms. Hit that subscribe button on the YouTube channel. Leave us a 5-star review, whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Stay safe out there. Till next time, peace out.